Hi, everyone. Thank you very, very much for joining us today at a very exciting event. Today, we're going to demonstrate to you our brand new tool called Data Investigator. I'm your host for today's session, Leon Gordon, CEO and founder of Onyx Data. And it will be great if you can just tell us where in the world you're joining us from, whether you're like us in the cold UK or whether you're somewhere sunny and warm. So please, please, please do let us know. With that being said, let me just go ahead and share my screen. Okay, excellent. Let's get a bit of a nicer view for everyone. Okay, so like I say, please do let us know where you're joining us from. As I mentioned, today we're going to take an in-depth look at our tool, Data Investigator. Now, before we do that, like I say, just want to introduce you to myself. My name is Leon Gordon, CEO and founder of Onyx Data. Onyx Data is a Microsoft partner, a data analytics and AI consultancy based in the UK. I'm also a member of the Forbes Technical Council and the Microsoft Data Platform MVP. Now, if you would like to connect with me, please do feel free to scan the QR code. I would love to hear from you in terms of your thoughts, comments, and feedbacks on today's tool. Okay, so with that being said, let's go ahead and move through today's session. So first and foremost, we're going to take a look at what is artificial intelligence. So there's been a lot of conversations around AI since the bursting onto the scene of ChatGPT, and everyone has become aware of what AI is. But I'm keen to kind of explain to everybody that AI actually has multiple layers to it. And I love this graphic here because I think it goes into a large amount of detail in terms of the different branches around AI. So let me go ahead and just make this screen slightly bigger so you can all see it. Let me go. Yes. And let's move me just here. Okay, we can leave me on this side for now. So with that being said, so AI, as I mentioned, has many branches to it, going from machine perception, machine learning, natural language processing, knowledge representation reasoning, automated planning, intelligent robots. And all of those have sub-branches within them as well. So we can start to see computer vision, computer audition, machine touch, etc., as we go through. Now, one of the areas that I want to demonstrate to you today with our tool is Gen AI. Okay, so as you've mentioned, and as I've said before, everyone's familiar with GPTs, general pre-trained transformers, and their ability to generate, whether it's text, images, video, from the underlying technologies. Now, what I always say with these type of technologies is that because they've become very widely adopted, people that aren't using these type of technologies in this day and age are, as I refer to in this image here, the traditional horse and racing against what I like to call sports cars. Okay, so what we're finding is that process efficiencies, productivity, and all of these are enhanced by starting to utilize and harness these Gen AI tool sets. And that's, as I mentioned before, if you're not currently using them in this day and age, then you're slightly lagging behind. I like this analogy because I don't feel that this technology is going to take anything away, or like jobs, for example, for end users out there. We still have horses being ridden, but ultimately, if you were going to go on a long journey in this day and age, I'm sure you would use a car. And also in terms of a race, the car would always outperform the horse. So I think there's a place in the world for both of these technologies. And what I would like to show you today is how you can become much more performant by using our Data Investigator tool. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive straight into our demo. So let's go ahead and change some screens around. Okay. Hopefully you can see my screen, which on the left-hand side here, we have Data Investigator. And we also have a CSV of data and a Power BI report in the background. This is going to be an interactive session, so please do feel free to ask any questions that you want to throughout. Our marketing team at Onyx Data are moderating the chat and will be on hand to ensure that your questions get answered. So first and foremost, what I want to do is open up a CSV file which has some e-commerce data within it. I'm going to open this in Excel just to give you a bit of insight in terms of what this data looks like. And if you'd like me to zoom in at all, please just let me know. Well, let's just zoom in anyway. So in this data, we have an invoice number, a stock code, a description of the goods that were purchased, a quantity, an invoice date and time, a unit price, a customer ID, and the country of purchase. Okay. Now it's a CSV with, let's see how many rows. Looks like 540,000 rows, give or take. Okay. Now, what we can do normally is do some exploratory data analysis using tools like Excel, Power BI, for example. And this can be quite heavy lifting in terms of the data analyst and data engineer's journey, understanding the underlying data set, looking for any anomalies, any patterns. And what we wanted to do at Onyx Data is turn this into a bit of a lighter load for you. So to do this, I'm going to show you this process using Data Investigator. So let's go ahead and minimize that data set. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag and drop this data directly into Data Investigator. And then I'm just going to hit enter. Okay. Now, this is a live demo, so let's go ahead and ensure that our internet speeds are up to speed and that the demo gods are kind to us today. And I'm also going to go ahead and make this full screen and just zoom in a bit more to make it a bit easier for you to read. So as you can see, Data Investigator has identified that we've uploaded a CSV file, the title of that CSV file, and it's announcing that it's going to start by analyzing this file, by checking its contents, structure, and any potential data quality issues, such as missing values, outliers, and then based on this analysis, Data Investigator is going to suggest suitable data transformations and ways to integrate this data directly into Power BI. Now, this is a relatively large spreadsheet in terms of the amount of rows, and you can see that it's going to go ahead and start to analyze that. Now, I've done this prior to today's demo, so I knew this error was going to be thrown, and it has told us there appears to be a Unicode decoding error while reading the CSV file. This is typically caused by the file containing characters that aren't compatible with the default UTF-8 encoding. Now, the great news about this tool is that it will actually go ahead and attempt to read the file again using a different encoding. And we can see that it's now been able to do that successfully in real time. After using the different encoding, it's given us a quick overview of the file's contents. It's given us a data dictionary showing us the invoice number, the stock code, the description, the quantity, the invoice date, the unit price, customer ID, and finally the country of where the customer resides. And it tells us what the next steps are going to be. It's going to assess the data quality, checking for missing values, outliers, and start to understand the data set's characteristics better. And it suggests again that this will help in suggesting the appropriate data transformations for us and preparing the data for integration into Power BI. Excellent. So what we can start to see here, and I will just scroll back up once Data Investigator has finished parsing the underlying data set, just so you can see everything that's been returned here. So as I mentioned, after it's gone away and done the exploratory data analysis and the DQ within this data set, it gives us some key observations. The first being the data size and structure. As we know, the data contains 541,909 entries and 8 columns. It tells us that the columns are actually a mix of object, so string data types, integer, and float data types. It's also been able to tell us that there are missing values within this data set. The description column has 1,454 missing values, and the customer ID column has 135,080 missing values. It also then goes on to tell us that the missing values in the customer ID are significant and may actually impact analysis that require customer-specific information. It then goes on to tell us more information about statistics and potential outliers. The quantity field actually has negative values, which could indicate returned items. And also the maximum value is extremely high in this scenario at 80,995, which could potentially be an outlier or a data issue. Okay. Then moving forward, the unit price, there are negative values within the unit price, which could indicate some data entry errors. And the data distribution, this data set actually doesn't have great data distribution, as most of the entries are from the United Kingdom, and there's a wide range of products from stock code and description. Now, it looks at these insights, and again, in real time, it gives us some insights in terms of transforming the data. So it's recommended to us how we can handle missing values within the data set by investigating the nature of the missing description and the customer ID. Depending on the analysis, the Data Investigator suggests that we might want to impute, either remove or flag these in a separate category. It then goes on to look at how we can address outliers and negative values by further investigating the nature of some of these extreme negative values. And we may need to either filter these out or treat them separately, again, depending on the business context of this analysis. Then we're looking at data type conversions. So looking at converting invoice date to a date time format for time series analysis. And then finally, some normalization. So normalizing numeric fields might be necessary, especially if we're going to be doing some predictive modeling. Now, a very thorough analysis there, and that all took place in a matter of seconds. The additional time has been from myself walking you through what's happening underneath the hood. So what I'm going to ask Data Investigator to do is to go ahead and apply these transformations. Okay, so apply transformations. Again, in the background, Data Investigator will tell us exactly the transformations it's going to apply. So it's going to handle the missing values in the description and the customer ID column. It's going to address outliers and negative values in the quantity and unit price. It's also going to convert the invoice date to a date time format, and it's going to normalize numeric fields if necessary. After these transformations, the data set would be more suitable for analysis and visualization within Power BI. Okay. So in this scenario, first and foremost, it's given us an error. Let's see if we can take a look at what this error is. And it's just showing us the actual Python scripts that are being deployed under the hood. And so it's actually trying to reconfigure itself on the fly. So let me just shut this down again, just so it's easier to follow. So it's realized that in the transformations it's trying to provide, it's encountered an error. Now on the fly, it's tried to reconfigure and continue providing those transformations. Okay. Now, following the reconfiguration, it's being successful in applying these transformations to the data set. So for the missing values, it's actually replaced missing description values with unknown. And for customer ID, it's actually replaced those with a placeholder value of -1. For outliers and negative values, they've actually been removed from this data set. And for data type conversion, invoice date, as we know, has been converted to a date time format. For normalization, quantity and unit price have been normalized using the min and max scaling method. And what Data Investigator now recommends to us is that this cleaned and transformed data set is now ready for further analysis and visualization in Power BI. Now, as those of you that are familiar with Power BI as a data analysis and visualization tool, Power BI loves to have a star schema. Now, as you know, the data set that we actually invoked as part of this demo is a single flat table. So what I'm going to ask Data Investigator to do is prepare this data set for analysis in Power BI and configure a star schema for ingestion into Power BI. Okay. Now let's see what happens. Data Investigator is going to tell us that to configure it into a star schema, it needs to define fact and dimension tables. For those of you that are not familiar with star schemas, Kimball methodology is a fantastic place to start learning some more about that, but that escapes the purpose of this demo. So what Data Investigator has recommended to us is the definition of our fact table and also what we should be using for our dimension tables. Okay, so we're going to have a fact table, which is going to include invoice number, quantity, unit price, and invoice date. Then we're going to have product dimensions, customer dimensions, and also a date dimensions. The steps it's going to take is it's going to extract the dimension tables from the existing data set, create a date dimension table, and prepare the fact table by including necessary keys from the dimension table. So in the background, Data Investigator is building out the star schema for us on the fly. Okay. Again, it's now given us some further information about the preparation of these tables and that they're all ready for us. So that's great. But how do we get access to this data now? Well, we simply say download the tables. Okay. And please, please, please do keep the questions coming in. Like I said, we want this to be an interactive session, and I will pause to go through some of these questions as we do make our way through. So once again, in the background, Data Investigator is just passing the information that we're providing to it and preparing those files for download. So we can now go ahead and download each of those different tables into a CSV by simply clicking on them. And I'll click on them for the purposes of this demo. And they will all go ahead and download. But for those of you that, again, are familiar with Power BI, actually importing these tables can be fairly time consuming. So wouldn't it be great if in Data Investigator we could actually prepare the M code directly to import to build the queries in Power BI for this solution? So prepare the M code for importing this data into Power BI. Excellent. So again, all in one solution, Data Investigator is able to put together the M code for importing each of these tables directly into Power BI. The only difference we would have to change in this scenario is the path to the actual CSV files themselves. So what you'll notice is that within the code, it just points to a fictional path. Okay, it has the name of the file, but we would have to change the file path, or even better, use a parameter to the location of the file within Power BI. Okay, excellent. So we've now prepared that data. We've built a star schema, and we've been able to load the queries directly for us to import the files into Power BI. So an absolutely fantastic starting point. But for those of us that, again, don't want to do all of the heavy lifting, let's ask Data Investigator some key areas that we can look at when we're looking to do some analysis and building reports off of this data set. Can you recommend some key metrics for analyzing this data set for executive reporting? So let's go ahead and see if there's any recommendations for us. So here we can see Data Investigator is looking, it's realized this is an e-commerce data set, and it's recommending that we provide some insights into sales performance, customer behavior, and operational efficiency. So again, here we can start to see that some of these data analysis points to the report could be total revenue. So that's total sales by a given period, which can be further broken down by product, category, region, or customer segment. We can look at gross margin, average order value, customer lifetime value, customer acquisition cost, sales conversion rate, return rate, inventory turnover, repeat customer rate, net promoter score, product performance, website traffic and conversion trends, cart abandonment rate, year-on-year growth, so on and so forth. Let's see if, can you prepare a dummy data visualization to represent, let's say, revenue over time for this data set. So let's see if we can actually start to look at visualizing the data directly within Data Investigator and providing some sort of overview for how we can take this forward when we're going to start to build out our Power BI report. Okay. And please, like I say, do feel free to ask any questions throughout. I know that we're moving a fair amount of pace, but this is due to the nature of the tool and us being able to interact with it very, very, very quickly. Okay. Excellent. So I think it's been a bit, what should we say, overcompensating in terms of its data visualization there, and providing something which is a bit too AI enhanced as opposed to a flat graphical representation of the data that we would need. So with that being said, let's look and see if we can start to build out some of these key metrics in DAX. Provide the DAX measures for some of the specific KPIs that you have recommended for analysis. Okay. So again, here we're now starting to see the Data Investigator is also building out the DAX for some of the key KPIs and measures that we can start to use in our reporting. It's key to call out here as well that it has just called our fact table, and we would have to replace this directly in Power BI. But again, lots of that initial heavy lifting can be done directly within the tool here. And some of these measures, as we can see here, refer to existing measures that we're creating as part of this as well. Now, for the purposes of this demo, I've gone ahead and imported all of this directly into Power BI already, so you don't have to watch me go through that process. But just before we do that, I'm just going to pause and take a look and see if we have any questions coming in. So we do have a few and also some comments as well. So let me go ahead and just pull some of these up. So Abdullah, thank you very much for joining us all the way from Nigeria. I hope it's nice and warm there as well, not like it is here in the UK. I'll say hello as well to Safish. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly there. Also to Abakari, thank you very much for joining us. Ruvako, thank you for joining us from Tanzania as well. Aloho, thank you. This is really good. I'm glad that you're starting to see some of the benefits in terms of using a tool like Data Investigator. And then Abukari asked a question, can you specify transformations for missing values? Yes, absolutely. If we were to go back to that stage, we could recommend to Data Investigator how to handle these type of transformations and then enable it to go ahead and perform those transformations for us. And yes, just to continue to answer the question you've raised there, yes, we can provide a recommended value for that. Okay, so also Nimaka asked the question, can Data Investigator prepare a data set for analysis in Python? Yes, absolutely. We're able to work with Data Investigator. We actually saw some of the Python code that was being generated as part of this behind the scenes. And you can also export this data either into CSVs, XLSX files, or ultimately you can actually just use Data Investigator to recreate the data within a data frame that you can rebuild directly in Python as well. Great question coming in from Robert. What is the difference between Data Investigator and ChatGPT? So this public version of Data Investigator is actually, we built out a custom GPT using the OpenAI ChatGPT interface. Now, we do also have an enterprise-ready version of Data Investigator, which includes security, the ability to look at relational databases and cloud-based data sets from that perspective. And also, it's a private, more enterprise-ready scenario, which is not available publicly currently. Like I say, this is an enterprise version, which is aimed more towards businesses, as opposed to this tool, which is aimed more towards individual developers. So the differences here are you have a bespoke, readily fine-tuned Data Investigator, which has the ability to explore, analyze, transform, model your data, and also create KPIs and metrics for you within a single custom GPT. So I hope that answers the question. And finally, just to say hello to Donald as well. Thank you very much for joining us as part of this session. Okay, so to continue, we've now gone through, looked at our data, we've done our data profiling, we've done our data quality, we've done our transformations, we've actually modeled our data directly within Data Investigator, and we've now looked at building out some key metrics and KPIs. As I mentioned before, I've done some heavy lifting for you already, so let's go ahead and open up Power BI. And you'll notice that we've imported this data into that familiar star schema that the Data Investigator built for us earlier. So we have our customer dimension, our country dimension, our date dimension, and our product dimension. And then we have our fact table. And in this example, I've also built a measure table with some of those measures that were recommended to us as well. Now, this is not going to be a data visualization session. This is just for completeness to show you some of those type of metrics that you can start to build out. So let's, for example, take a look at total sales. And we can take a look at total sales by the stock code, for example. And then we can start to see all of our sales, which are from our fact table, and then via our product dimension. Let's go ahead and do the same for orders, for example. And then ultimately, let's also take a look at, let's take a look at total customers by country, for example. And we can see that skew towards the United Kingdom that the Data Investigator pointed out to us earlier. And then finally, let's take a look at something like, year on year. Actually, let's go for average order value, for example, and let's look at that by customer. And we know that some of these customer IDs, let's change this to be more like this. Okay. And let's actually not use customer, let's use country, just as it's easier to see the data there. So average order value, the highest is actually coming in from Singapore. So straight away, we can start to see some of this coming together very, very quickly. Now, with me actually walking through this process end to end, it's taken us about 20-25 minutes to go through and do all of that processing and get the data into a manageable state ready for analysis within Power BI and visualization. If I hadn't have been walking through step by step, this could have been a 5-minute process very, very easily. So I'm hoping you can start to see some of the benefits that using a tool like Data Investigator as part of your analysis toolkit can start to bring from an efficiency perspective. I've been in scenarios where this end-to-end process has taken weeks due to complexities within the data, having stakeholders, having multiple people having to work with the data, from data governance to stakeholders, data modelers, for example, and this process can be very, very, very time consuming at the enterprise level. Now, like I mentioned with this tool, some of the key benefits are you can use this in a silo. You can actually share the outputs directly with your colleagues. And you can also interact with this in real time and start to ask questions with your virtual assistant, which in this example is Data Investigator. So I hope everybody enjoyed the walkthrough today. Just before we do move into any questions, so please do be prepared if you do have any questions to go ahead and ask some of those. I'd like to just give you some more information about the work that we do at Onyx Data and how you can collaborate with us and form a path to success. Okay. So in terms of our expertise, we are best in class. We have Microsoft MVPs on our consulting team. We have a reputation which has been built on results, and our results speak for themselves. Over 70% of our work is referral, recommendation, or repeat business. And we also partner with industry-defining technologies, including Microsoft, Databricks, and as you've seen today, OpenAI. In terms of what we've been able to achieve with organizations, it's been a minimum of a 30% increase in revenue for our end clients, a 50% increase in the number of employees using data to make decisions, and a 35% increase as a minimum in data accuracy. And as our thank you to you for joining today's session, you can go ahead and scan the QR code to be one of the first people to be able to actually go and test Data Investigator as part of our pilot rollout. So please do go ahead and scan that QR code so you can be one of the first people to actually get your hands directly on this tool. Okay. And I'd like to close there and have the opportunity to answer any questions that you might have. I'll just keep that QR code up on the screen for you. Excellent. And then, yes, happy to answer any questions that you may have before ending today's webinar. Like I say, I hope you've all thoroughly enjoyed the session and you've been able to see how much of a benefit this can really be to you when you're taking part in, whether it's competitions, you're working in your environment, or you're just being able to teach yourself more. This is a fantastic learning aid to be able to learn more about the process that takes part in getting up to speed with data as well. Okay, excellent. I can't see any questions coming in at the moment, so safe to say that I think you've all been able to get the information you need from today's session, and it's a fairly straightforward walkthrough in terms of how you can handle and manipulate that data directly in a chat-based environment as well. So I'd like to thank you all for your time. Please do feel free to reach out to us. Oh, actually, sorry, we have got one question coming in from Abukari. So let's go ahead and just show this. How do you issue a command to combine individual Excel files? Well, you do exactly that, Abukari. You ask Data Investigator to be able to combine the files that you actually give to it. So if you were to upload multiple CSV files, you would just ask it to combine those files. Obviously, it would have to have some form of key relationship to combine them effectively. If not, it may just end up appending that data or asking you if you would just like to merge the attributes of those files. So it really depends on that scenario, but all of the commands that you would like to try can be handled just by inputting text directly into the chat box. I hope that answers your question. Excellent. With that being said, like I say, I want to thank you all for your time. Please do scan the QR code. Come and join us in what is a revolutionary new product from Onyx Data. Like I mentioned, Data Investigator, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with you all and helping you in your data analysis journey. Take care now and stay safe.